The EP Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at theeppodcast.com.
The month of May is when summer starts to poke through just a little bit. It's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We're going to have a guest in from OSF, Little Company of Mary, right here in Evergreen Park. Their breast cancer walk is coming up. You may want to join in. The mayor of Evergreen Park is on here as well, and it's all brought to you by the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. Get a home equity line of credit with a special 6-month introductory rate of 4.79%. Use it for home improvements, unexpected expenses, debt consolidation, medical expenses, vacations, so much more. That rate is available until the end of June. And let me give you a piece of advice, because I learned this. You get the home equity line of credit when everything is going well, or when you're thinking about needing to use it. And then you hold on to it, and it's there. It's a nice little security blanket. And the friendly folks over at the First National Bank of Evergreen Park in that iconic building at 95th and Pulaski will take you step by step. The First National Bank of Evergreen Park, member FDIC. Special guest this week on the EP podcast. Always nice when she stops by. The mayor of Evergreen Park, Kelly Burke. How are you?
I'm great, Chris. How about you?
I'm good. Spring is here.
Spring is here. I was just planting a tree for Arbor Day.
Yeah.
Although even though it's past, but we got a whole bunch of new trees that we've planted this spring, thanks to a grant from the Morton Arboretum. So the Public Works Department's been hard at work getting those trees up and, waiting for the cicadas, I guess.
I found myself to be a tree expert after Gavin has been down here a couple of times.
He knows a lot about trees.
Somebody was on Facebook the other day and it popped up in my feed asking about planting a tree in that little area between the sidewalk and the street. And I was like, no, don't do that. Don't even waste your money. Call the village. They have trees every year that they plant. They maintain those, everything. I felt like an expert because he's been on the show before and he talked about it. And I think you noticed as you walked in, we're also doing our best to help the wildlife. The pool cover is still on. I have ducks that come every day and they swim on top of it. And my 16-year-old has been so busy with high school athletics that even though the front has been mowed, the back looks like a field in Omaha in the mid-1880s. That's what it kind of looks. There's tumbleweeds. There's when the wind blows, the dog has to hop over certain areas of it. So right now we're very wildlife oriented.
It's environmentally friendly.
All right, so you've got some exciting things going on. Mm-hmm. You got some projects coming up. I can dive into the big thing first. You want to do that? Because this is the one that I saw explode on Facebook. If we can dive into it right away, okay? Because otherwise I get accused of just not asking you the hard question. So I'll dive into this. Okay.
Bring it on.
A dispensary possibly coming into Evergreen Park, location around, I want to say 91st and Kedzie?
9122.
Okay.
South Kedzie.
So I know exactly where that is. And, I'll give you my personal thoughts on it right away. I have never been to a dispensary. I think the first time I ever tried marijuana in my life, I realized that I could control alcohol a lot better. I'm a beer and bourbon guy, but I have friends. I have friends that go to them. I have friends that eat the gummies and have the little tab. And these are people that have high-ranking jobs in society, and it's not like they're a bunch of stoners walking around with a hacky sack. So I know a lot of people who go to dispensaries just like they would go to a Binny's. On the other hand, I have to admit I'm ignorant about them. I don't know, do they bring in more crime? I don't know, does it change a neighborhood? I don't know whether or not if the concerns that I saw popping up from a few people on Facebook, is that the view of a dispensary from, let's say, 1990? Or is that an actual accurate one now that we have these regulated things? So can you take me through this a little bit? Because I know you're pragmatic. You've looked into this.
Right. So just by way of background, dispensary license holder wants to purchase the building at 9122 South Kedzie, which is the old Scott Credit Union. And then they have negotiated with the owner of the parcel next door, which was an old gas station, which is now vacant. So 2 separate properties. Their proposal is to use the Scott Credit Union building for the dispensary and then provide additional parking by creating a parking lot on that vacant space.
So it wasn't Evergreen said, we want to bring in a dispensary. Somebody said, hey, we've got a great location. We want that one.
Yes. So the village has allowed through zoning, allowed for a dispensary since 2021. We kind of authorized that. Originally, the area that we were looking at was along Western Avenue from 91st to 99th Street. And as time has gone on, we've learned a lot about commercial real estate and also the requirements that a dispensary needs in terms of size, parking, things like that. And what has happened is that there has not been a space available along Western.
That fits what the requirements
are. And
but back in 2021, you guys were already thinking about this.
Right. Back in 2021, we know a lot more now than we did in 2021. Just, through, and I've talked to numerous cannabis dispensary license holders over those years. So these folks came to us and, inquired about property along Kedzie. And because of their plan, I guess, to put together the parking with the building, it kind of fit some of the space requirements because the parking, as with most businesses, is always a big issue. But the Scott Credit Union building standing alone did not have the sufficient parking. So when they coupled that with the, plan to put a parking lot in at the gas station, then we thought, well, let's hear what they have to say.
Okay.
And so that's how that came about. So their petition for a special use permit, that's kind of the technical term for it, was filed, and then we set it for a public hearing, and that was
a couple weeks ago.
And so we did have quite a few folks who came, and obviously in any type of situation where you're bringing in a new business, the people who are most concerned about it are the folks who are most impacted, who are, generally the neighbors who are right there. So we heard a lot from the neighbors. We heard a lot from, people in the general vicinity. So, there's a difference of opinion.
I know one of the big things was that a lot of neighbors wanted a fence up around the property. Sometimes some people feel better with fencing. And so it sounds like you guys have heard that's a big concern.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, look, like I said, I'm a beer guy, right? So if I go to a brewery, sometimes there's a patio and everybody's trying out the beer. Does that happen at a dispensary, or do people just buy it and go home?
They buy it and go home.
They buy it and go home.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not going to be like a weird cartoon where like there's this weird cloud that just hangs over 91st. And
so consumption on premises is not allowed.
Okay.
Either inside or on the exterior. So it's a grab and go, as they say. And from what we've learned is that many people do online ordering, and they're literally just coming to pick up, and that's probably the majority of people. As the board, as the village, as we're looking at this, and we're still in a due diligence phase right now, is looking at how they operate in other towns and villages. What are best practices that other towns, because there are quite a few. There's about 50 dispensaries that are in the Chicago suburbs, as well as some dispensaries in Chicago itself. And so we have reached out proactively to the police departments in about 25 of those. Also, I've touched base with mayors in different towns, specifically 2 mayors who have worked with this particular group. They have a dispensary that's opening in Forest Park this month, and another in Brookfield that's going to open over the summer. So I talked with those mayors about how these specific folks were to work with. And then we've done some, talking to police departments in other towns to say, what have you seen? Have there been problems? What have the problems been? How did you correct them? How folks been to work with? So done a lot of that.
And that makes sense, because I think that's been something that, like, I know Mark Marzullo talks about that a lot. One of the village trustees, when he comes down there, is the idea that, we're not always the first place to try something for a reason, so we can see, does it actually work, and how do people fix the problem so we're ready for it?
Yeah. And then, we've spent some time, I have personally, and a couple of the trustees have too, just going to a couple of the other nearby dispensaries.
Oh, you're popping into dispensaries.
Well, I have seen one before, but just honestly kind of sitting in the parking lot and just watching what goes on, who comes in, how long they stay, and just trying to get a feel for it. And then,
I like that. I like
going
the
in
idea
and
of
talking
hearing
to the
that
people.
The mayor of Evergreen Park is staking out dispensaries,
Yeah,
just seeing what's going on. I love it.
Picked up by the cops. I'm not quite sure. So we are still very much in the due diligence
Right.
phase. We got feedback from the meeting for sure. And the reaction was mixed. And one thing that I would hope is that whoever has a keen interest in this, either on one side or the other, really has an understanding of what's involved. That's what we're trying to do for these. So, instead of, just making a statement, maybe do some due diligence on these places that are nearby, Blue Island, Burbank. There's one opening in Hometown. It's not open yet. Chicago Ridge, Crestwood.
So they are popping up all around.
Yeah, they are kind of, all over. And then further afield, like I said, Forest Park and Brookfield are the two that this particular group are involved in. There's one in Riverside, there's one in Tinley Park, there's kind of all over. So there's a way to go check these out and see, what concerns you about them, what doesn't. So again, it's some due diligence. I would anticipate that we would have another public meeting.
And just before we jump off the subject, I would imagine that something like this is something where you get some tax dollars by having it in here.
You do.
There's a benefit to having this type of a business.
Yeah, I mean, it's economic development, it's retail. Several years ago, we did a survey about what people, want to see.
Was this on there?
This was on there. It was nowhere up near the top like Trader Joe's, or a brewery,
right?
Which probably were our top two. But there were a fair number of votes, so to speak, for a dispensary. So definitely willing to look at it, and just in terms of how people feel about it. I went back and looked, and in 2018, there was a referendum question on our general election ballot, and it was just for Cook County, and it was an advisory question about how people felt about having marijuana legalized. And so I went back and looked at the results from that. Overall, Evergreen Park was probably close to 70% of the people who voted in that election voting in favor of it. Sort of varied a little bit by precincts, but overall we were at about 70%. So, I think there's kind of an acceptance of this as a legal product. Whether or not this is, the right business for our town, that's something we're kind of working through.
Okay, let's talk about something that's great for businesses in this town, which I think they all look forward to, especially if they're up and down 95th Street. It's a big party day. You got the Independence Day parade that you're planning. What do we have a grand marshal yet? Do we have anything new happening this year? Is it just going to be bigger and better with the same outline?
Let's start with the date. So the date is Friday, June 28th. And then we'll have the parade and then fireworks to follow. Our grand marshal are the folks from Christmas Without Cancer. And their head honcho, Jerry Nealon, who is a wonderful person, was actually the Chamber of Commerce's Citizen of the Year this year. So Jerry will be there as Citizen of the Year, and then the organization itself will be there, and they do great work.
I love that you're doing it on the 28th. Like, I always get nervous that it's going to mess up my weekend at the lake. So I love that you're doing it on the 28th.
Well, it is.
I know there's going to be some who's like, it should be on the 3rd or it should be on the 4th. But I personally love where you're putting this. This
is one you're not going to please everybody.
Yeah.
And so for a variety of reasons, we went with, we've been doing it on that Friday before. And the feedback we got last year from a lot of people was they liked it as a way to kick off
it's like a whole
the
week.
July 4th weekend.
It's a big giant week. Yeah, it's great.
So
it's a great idea.
Yeah.
All right. I'm coming down firmly on the side of that's an awesome date for it. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris.
28th of June. All right. So Waste Not, Waste Not was on this show.
I love Waste Not.
I think it's just cute that they have people driving around picking up buckets of your leftovers, and they're cleaning it all out for you and drop it off, and you get to feel like you're saving the environment and doing great things. And every once in a while, I'll get some compost delivered to my door too.
Right.
So I'm into it. I thought it was really cool. Did you get a reaction from that?
You know what? We haven't gotten too much yet. I signed up personally just to give it a try as well. It was something I heard intermittently from residents about. So, I mean, I don't know what the take-up rate for this is going to be. And because it's completely voluntary, but also that the homeowner is paying for their own subscription service for this, I mean, we'll see what the take-up rate is. But if this is something, that you or your family wanted to get into, I think the cost is fairly reasonable. They give you a brand new bucket when they take away your old bucket. So there's no, you're not rinsing out a grungy bucket, and you're diverting stuff from the landfill that can go to making compost and have other environmental benefits. So we're going to give it a try.
You've got a lot of things going on with waste. I don't know. This feels like it's the year of.
We don't really like to
changing.
say waste when we talk about government, because the Village of Evergreen Park is a very lean and efficient entity.
There we go. But I mean, we're talking like you changed who was handling the garbage.
Yes.
Right. That seems to be going very well.
It's going great.
I haven't seen any kind of issues with it. And guess what? These new guys don't leave the trash cans blocking my driveway like they're mad at me for sticking my trash can out. Like this has been they handle it much more efficiently. I don't see a garbage can just wandering down the street, which is great.
And one of the benefits of the Flood Brothers and their way they do their logistics, what we've noticed is there's less flyaway. So because somebody gets out of the truck and puts the can on the arm that goes into the back of the truck, as opposed to coming out the side and then the truck the truck picks it up and launches it. There's just less things spilling out of the garbage cans.
Yeah.
And so it's resulted in some, kind of a cleaner experience.
I love it. Are they involved with this e-waste pickup, or is that something else?
They are involved with the e-waste pickup. So as part of their service, you can have the waste picked up, e-waste and household hazardous waste picked up at your home. You can call them. They prefer 48 hours, but you can call 24 hours ahead. You have old paint cans, you have, an old television, a computer screen, something like that. They will pick it up at curbside, but some people need a deadline, right? And so what we worked out with them was to have 2 events each year where people can drop things off. So the first of those will be this coming Saturday, May 12th, or is it May 11th?
May 11th.
May 11th at the Senior Center, 9547 South, home in from 9 to 11. So people can, residents only. Residents.
Yeah.
Village residents can come by, drop off your e-waste, drop off your household hazardous
waste. You IDing
waste.
people dropping off e-waste? Is that
I will be there personally inspecting license.
I don't know who you are.
Right. You're going to have to give me an address before we're going to let you drop it off.
Is the amnesty program for the
amnesty
tickets, is
program.
that residents only as well?
Well, no, that is not residents only because not everyone who gets a ticket is a resident, right? This would be for all sorts of things. So it would be municipal violations, disorderly conduct, a parking ticket, blowing off fireworks. I don't know, all sorts of things we give municipal tickets for, as well as kind of inspection type things. You didn't have your grass cut. And I mean, we generally give warnings for those. So people who get actual tickets for this are folks who
they had a lot of chances, is what you're trying to say.
They had a lot of chances, but also red light camera tickets as well. So it's an amnesty program that runs through June 15th. It'll be a one-time 50% reduction of the balance owed on overdue citations if paid in full before June 15th.
Okay.
Otherwise, after June 15th, collection efforts will occur.
They're going to double their efforts They'll be on your front lawn.
I don't know about that. But
go pay your 50%, okay?
Yeah. So that's something, we're trying to clear the books and also, offer folks an opportunity to clear the books and their consciences.
Okay, well, clear your consciences, okay? I mean, if the mayor's staking out dispensaries to see whether or not they're really a problem, okay, she may move on after this amnesty thing and start staking out your house to get you to pay your fines.
I probably won't.
No?
I probably won't, yeah.
Well, that's what I imagine you're doing.
And then in general, we got summer coming. I mean, Saturday was almost like it was summer. It was so beautiful out. So it started we got girls softball and baseball starting. We've got all the spring sports. Sign up for all our summer day camps. I'm sure you'll have somebody on from Rec coming up to talk about all the great programs we're going to have going on this summer. But we've got the summer concerts coming up. We've got the food truck festival. We're going to have another acoustic concert behind the driving range. So all fun things.
That's awesome. And everybody slow down, for crying out loud. The kids are back out again.
Exactly.
Right? Slow down.
Slow down. Stop at stop signs.
Right.
Yeah.
That double yellow line in the middle of 99th Street says you can't pass because the other guy's driving the speed limit. I just want to throw that out there while the mayor's here. Yeah. That's what that means. All right. Look, you're doing great. I love everything that's going on. Thank you for answering all of my questions. I'm sure I'll have more the next time you come back. I always get the most mail after you leave. Like, you forgot to ask about this. And I go, where were you people when I said she was coming on the show?
Well, also, people could just call me or email me.
That is true. You let people call you.
708-422-1551 or kburke@evpkadm.org. I might not always be able to solve every problem you've got, but we're going to try.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Building relationships, supporting the community, and service. These are the things that Country Financial stands for. They're more than just an office you may pass by as you drive through Evergreen Park. They're neighbors who lend a helping hand and support the fabric of your community, including charitable organizations, sports, financial education, and civic organizations. And since Country is already your neighbor, they want to get together and chat. Call your local Country Financial representative, Mike Thauer, today at 708-425-1559 to talk about the things that are important to you and how he can help you protect them. Colleen Hafencher is sitting down here at the 9-foot homemade oak bar. How are you, Colleen?
Hey, I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good. So you are from Little Company of Mary OSF, right here in Evergreen Park. The home, of course, of Spoke and Vine Wine Bar and Bottle Shop, northeast corner of 95th and Kedzie. Wines from all over the world, an incredible wine club, great food. You find something you like, you purchase it over there in the bottle shop, you bring it home. See more at spokenvinewines.com. Colleen, first off, I always equate it as it was my grandparents' hospital. Like when I was a kid and poor grandma or grandpa were in the hospital, they always seemed to be a Little Company of Mary. I always equate it as the hospital that's across the street from Rosangela's, which it just seems like that's people are going back and forth across that street. And it's the hospital of Evergreen Park. I've been in there a few times. My mom has used the chapel a bunch of times. She thinks that they got a wonderful chapel that's inside of it. But I don't know everything about the hospital. And you stop by because, one, you represent the hospital. You represent a very important department within the hospital that I want to learn about. But also you guys are doing a big cancer walk on Mother's Day. Tell me a little bit about that.
That's right. And, Little Company was known as the baby hospital. So you're not wrong that it's Evergreen Park's hospital. A little bit of a tangent. Sister Carol, one of our nuns, actually told us this great story during our onboarding that when the hospital was built, there were really no other buildings around Little Company. And it was a free hospital meant to care for the sick, just as it is now. And the nuns used to go on different floors to turn on the lights when they didn't have patients so that people would feel warm and welcomed coming in thinking, oh, there's people there.
So there's nobody there, but they're lighting up.
Yep.
They don't want it to look like that hospital in The Godfather. That's just empty.
Exactly.
Where like any minute somebody's just come in and smother you with a pillow.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, mind you, this was the early 1930s, a little bit different of times. But I love that. And a lot of that mentality of caring for the sick, caring for the underserved, that continues to be the mission of Little Company. And it's just such a unique place to work and to care for people. I actually manage the cancer center at Little Company of Mary.
Which makes sense because you have a cancer walk. So that's why that makes sense.
So here I am, right?
Yeah.
So this year, it's actually our 25th year for the Beverly Breast Cancer Walk. I was actually a part of it on its first year when my mom was going through her breast cancer treatment. And so 25 years later, to not only be doing the walk again, but now to be on the side of the recipients of those who receive the funds from the walk and who get to go around and help build and establish and just be a part of this is a really full circle moment for me.
It's a thing that you see people doing around the country on Mother's Day, and there's a breast cancer walk, right? I mean, like, let's be honest. Major League Baseball is going to have pink baseball bats.
Yep.
Like, this is something that is a nationwide thing that everybody's doing. It's cool that Little Company of Mary does it locally, and I think that it's a wonder. It becomes a family event, from what I can tell.
And I think the reason people do this walk around the country, right, is cancer is a family disease. Not only do we see hereditary impacts in families being burdened and diagnosed with this, but we see how it impacts the entire family, how it allows people to come together, how it really needs people to carry on and support one another when somebody's going through it. And so,
and it's a scary thing, right? I mean, like, it is.
Terrifying.
Like,
traumatic.
I've had friends that have been diagnosed with cancer, and you can just tell, as tough as they try to talk about it, it's a scary thing. Going in and starting treatment must be petrifying. I pray and hope I never have to do it, even though it seems like that's the odds are we all at some point may run into that kind of an experience the way that the world is right now.
Yeah, and getting diagnosed with cancer is trauma, right? Simple as that. And what we talk about at our team, meetings really every day is how it's our responsibility to help navigate these folks through that trauma, right? It's always going to be traumatic. It's always going to be a life-altering event. But how can we cushion the blow? How can we help give information, education, programming to individuals to not only make the burden of that diagnosis of that disease more manageable, but everything that comes after it, right? How do you care for somebody who's gone through cancer? And the really cool thing is how we're utilizing the funds this year is doing just that. So cancer care, and specifically breast cancer care, is not what it was 25 years ago. We have genomic testing. We have genetic testing. We have an understanding of how one person's specific cancer thinks, acts, reacts. And so we're able to give people drugs and clinical measures that specifically target the nature of their cancer. And because of that, we're seeing significant higher rates of people living longer, not only with cancer, but people surviving cancer. So this year, we're taking the funds from the Beverly Breast Cancer Walk and actually utilizing it to build and develop a survivorship program. That's going to be a nurse practitioner-driven clinic. It is something that we've never had at Little Company, and that a lot of cancer centers are just now starting to develop, knowing that if how we've taken care of people has changed, our programming has to change with it.
It's good that you're taking care of people after. I think that's really cool. I was looking at the list of some of the things that you are doing, and you're working with a local place, Core Fitness.
That's right. We love Core.
Yeah, I love Core too. I actually did physical therapy all last year because I'd hurt my back over at Core.
I did all my pre and postnatal care with them, and that's really what got me to understand them, right? They're not a boutique fitness place. They have fitness and exercise, but they're also really intrinsically there to take care of you wherever you're at your phase of your life.
Yeah,
right?
they got everything there, and they're right there next to Little Company, which is awesome. But on the list, I saw something else that I'm going to ask you about: mind-body hypnosis.
Yeah.
So what are we doing here? We're sitting down the cancer patient. We're putting a watch in front of them. We're kind of ticking it back and forth.
Yeah,
and
everybody gets their own watch.
You don't have cancer. Right. Calm down. Stop worrying. Like, what is that?
Yeah, so the mind-body connection is really incredibly important for patients, right? And so this actually started during COVID when our traditional support groups and programming and connectivity was halted, right? Nobody could get together. And especially if you have no immune system and you have cancer, you certainly cannot get together with people. And so this is a Zoom-based group that happens once a month, and it's open exclusively for little company patients and survivors. And it's not that watch your hypnosis or you're falling asleep. It's really a sort of meditative experience, right? It's allowing people, when cancer patients are diagnosed with cancer, a lot of times there is control taken away, right? You are no longer in charge of your body. You are no longer in charge of where am I going on this day and what am I doing here, right? And anxiety and depression can really start to foster in the cancer patient when we lose that sense of control. But what there is the ability to control is that mindset, right? That space that you're in mentally during and after that treatment. And so what this programming specifically does is it teaches people how to be attentive in their thoughts. It teaches them how to be present and focused in their mind and start to move past those feelings of anxiety and depression. Not that they're going away, but how do we live with them? And so it's a really unique program. I'm really excited that we're able to continue it.
So one of the things I always think about when it comes to a cancer diagnosis or any scary diagnosis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a friend currently right now, I don't want to give away what he's going through, but it was basically like he's going to end up needing a transplant and he's very scared about the whole thing. And right away, us as friends, you don't have the best doctors. Like that's what we're like. You are not in a major city. You do not have the guy that was at the top of his class. We need to get you someplace else, right? Like people get diagnosed with cancer and right away, some people go online, try to answer every question about it and try to find the top guy in the field.
Dr. Google.
Right, exactly. And then the fear is that they're not getting the right thing. So even though they like to stay local, right, they're like considering the idea of like picking up all of their stuff and moving to another state for a year. I mean, like that happens. Now, it sounds like Little Company has a facility right here in Evergreen Park. If somebody in the area suddenly was faced with this diagnosis and was thinking about the idea of staying locally, like you probably don't get a chance to make a pitch to them. But I mean, like what is it about Little Company that they should consider the idea that like, I'm going to stay right here, stay in my own home and go to that hospital?
You know, I actually come from the world of academic medicine, right? I just recently joined Little Company in the last 8 months, and it's the best kept secret on the South Side. And what we're actively doing is trying to share that secret with everybody, right? I have a dedicated breast surgeon who is trained at Northwestern. My radiation oncologist is trained at Rush. My medical oncologist is trained at Yale. Half of my team is coming from places like University of Chicago, Rush, Northwestern. So we've got that academic flair, I would say, with that community setting feel, right? Where you're going to know every single person by name on what their care team is, and they're going to know you by name, right? So there's that individualized personal experience. There's no need to pay for parking. There's no need to drive into the city because everything is right there with still those academic resources. We've got a clinical trials program that we have available. And then sometimes what happens is a disease is really progressing, or it is something that we don't see or treat very often, or it hasn't responded to traditional therapies that we cannot offer. One of the really great things is that we have relationships with our academic partners, right? And so if it gets to a point that we say, we're not able to offer you a therapy that we have, we're going to work with our partners and we're going to make sure that they take care of you, and we'll hand that patient off to the academic setting.
That's amazing. See, that's really incredible to me because I am a cynical person.
Sure.
I really am.
Me too.
Like I am. I try to see the world as good, and then I'm constantly given examples of people that will do anything for money. And so like to hear that a hospital, like that sounds more like the movie Miracle on 34th Street, right? Go to Gimbals. Like you guys are like, we can do it. And if we can't do it, we'll tell you we can't do it. And I think that's all I ever want to hear from a doctor or from anybody I'm going to with a major thing in my life, that like, hey, we can do A, B, and C. We're good at this. You just happen to have something that we think the best place to go is this place over here. If I know that I'm going to get that from a place, I actually feel more confident going in there because I'm like, well, if they can't do it, I'm going to get a professional telling me where to go. Because what we did with my buddy right away was I reached out to a close friend of mine who's a doctor and said, where would you go? That's the first thing I did because I don't know, right? Everybody's like, well, we got to find him something. I'm like, where would you go? And the funny thing was, It was a local place that he gave me. He was sitting there and he's like, for what he had specifically, it was something that was local actually that he knew about. So I think that's the thing. If you have the confidence when you're walking into something, especially medically, that you're going to get honesty from your doctor. I mean, that's what I do now with my primary physician. The guy I have now is specifically because he answers my questions and I feel like he listens to me. I don't know if he's a genius or not. It's just that he answers my questions and he listens to me. I think that's the most important thing.
And you're not a number, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my physicians know all of their patients by name. They know their families. They know what's going on. And here's the thing when it comes to cancer care. There's national guidelines that are delivered for cancer care through, which is called the National Comprehensive Cancer Network. And so it's an algorithm. So if you have a stage 2 breast cancer, you have to follow X, Y, and Z. Now, there's accountability measures that hospitals need to put in place to say, are you following that algorithm? Are you utilizing, your clinical discrepancy where you can? And so there's programs through the American College of Surgeons, which is known as the Commission on Cancer, and NAPBC, which is the National Accreditation Program for Breast Cancer Care. So every 3 years, these surveyors come into our hospital and we have to go through about 150 different check marks of quality, research, data, clinical, monitoring, oversight, and we have to prove that we're doing all of these standards.
That's awesome.
So we are accredited through both programs. There's only 39 hospitals in Illinois that are accredited, and there's not a lot of programs nationally that are. And so I think for us...
So this is rare that somebody goes through all those checks and balances, what you guys are doing.
For a community hospital, absolutely.
We have Mother's Day coming up. The walk is happening. Where's it at? Is there a website or is there a way they can join in?
It takes place at Ridge Park. Mass is actually at 7 o'clock that morning. Father Donovan from St. Barnabas actually says the Mass.
Over at your chapel.
At Ridge Park, actually.
At Ridge Park.
So
Okay.
The Mass itself starts at Ridge Park. The walk starts at Ridge Park. It starts and ends at Ridge Park. If individuals are looking for transportation, they can actually park at Little Company, and we have a shuttle bus take people to and from Ridge Park the morning of. We've got 2 local singers, Colleen Duffy-Lucky, who's a local Macaulay Garrel, and Tom McNichols, who is the director for the theater and music program at St. Xavier, are actually singing for the Mass that morning. It's always a really special, memorable and honoring Mass to the women in our lives, the men and women that we've lost to breast cancer, and just really honoring the day and the significance of it. And then it's a 3-mile walk around the Beverly neighborhood. We've got a lot of really fun events along the walk. So we've got the streets and sanitation trucks that are blocking the way, that are all decked out in pink, which my toddlers love to climb on while we're there. We've got some live music along the way. We've got some dancers that are coming through. And it's just a really fun morning. The neighborhood really shows up for this. So hoping that, we've got great weather on our side. And it'll be a great day. It's the 25th year.
Colleen Hafencher, thanks so much for stopping in from OSF Little Company America.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
It's the EP Podcast. All things Evergreen Park. It's the EP Podcast. Evergreen Park.